In this lecture, I am going to discuss about the topic multicellularity. In the previous lecture, where we have discussed about cells, there I have told that there is a one important sentence, that is, organisms contain organs. Organs are composed of tissues. Tissues consist of cells, and cells are formed from molecules. The unity of living system is coordinated by many levels of interrelationship. Molecules carry messages from organ to organ and cell to cell, and tissues are delineated and integrated with other tissues by molecules secreted by cells. So there is a great level of interconnection, and this particular interconnection uh, basically forms the concept of multicellularity. Life has been marked by several different evolutionary events that each wrought a wholesale change, that is, each made a wholesale change in the way that cells operate. So, in the operation of cells, there is a remarkable change, and this remarkable change occurred through the multicellularity. One important category of such events is the acquisition of the ability of cells to communicate and cooperate with one another to form multicellular communities with common goals. So, what is multicellularity? Multicellularity is the acquisition of the ability of cells to communicate and cooperate with each other to form multicellular communities with common goals. This has happened many times throughout all branches of life and has culminated in extremely large organisms such as redwood trees and giraffes. So, in this lecture, I will give you some examples, and through these examples, we will learn the concept of multicellularity. And the content of this particular topic is from the textbook Physical Biology of the Cell by Rob Phillips and others. So, the first example is the bacteria. Bacteria interact to form colonies such as biofilms. Now we will learn about biofilms. The oldest known cellular communities recorded in the fossil record are essentially gigantic bacterial colonies called stromatolites. Although most stromatolites were outcompeted in their ecological niches by subsequent fancier forms of multicellular life, a few can still be found today taking essentially the same form as their 2 billion-year-old fossil brethren. Bacterial colonies of this type can still be found today in Australia. Now I will show you this image of the fossil which is found in Australia. So this is the fossil that is still found in Australia, and this is the close-up view. This is the close-up view of this particular fossil record. You can see this is a colony of the cells. These are the colonies of the cells formed by cyanobacteria. These communities have a characteristic size of about a meter. So this communities have a characteristic size of about a meter. You just note the length scale, because later we will discuss about the multicellularity, and there you will see that is the length scale of the multicellularity varies from one community to the other, and reflect collections of bacterial cells held together by an extracellular matrix secreted by these cells. That is, these cells secrete some extracellular matrix which acts as some adhesion, and with this adhesive all the cells are stick together. Many interesting kinds of bacterial communities consist of more than one species. Indeed, through a sophisticated system of signaling, detection and organization, bacteria form colonies of all kinds ranging from biofilms to the ecosystem within animal guts. Animal guts means that is animal stomach. We know in our stomach also there are different types of bacteria present. Bacterial biofilms are familiar to us all as the basis of the dentist's warning to floss our teeth every night, because we know that is in our dental implant there is formation of bacterial colony. These communities are functionally as well as structurally interdependent. Other biofilms are noted for their destructive force when they attach to the surface of materials. So I will show you one of the example of formation of biofilms in some dental implant. These blue dots are bacteria, and you see that is step by step more bacteria are attaching together and which are stick together by some extracellular matrix, and this is the formation of the biofilm in dental implant. The formation of a biofilm results in a population of bacterial cells that are attached to a surface and enclosed in a polymeric matrix built up of molecules produced by these very same bacteria. That is, the polymeric matrix that are attaching all the bacteria, and this polymeric matrix are basically the molecules produced by those bacteria. These films have a relative proportion of something like 85% of the mass taken up by extracellular matrix. So 85% of the biofilm is formed by the extracellular matrix, while the remaining 15% is taken up by the cells themselves, that is bacterial cells themselves. A typical thickness for such films ranges from 10 to 50 micrometer. Now I will show you another example of multicellularity, and this is lifestyle of Dictyostelium discoideum. Although bacteria can form communities, eukaryotes have clearly raised this to a high art. One particularly fascinating example that may give clues as to the origin of eukaryotic multicellularity is the cellular slime mold Dictyostelium discoideum. So this is the figure, and I will show you step by step that is how there is multicellularity in this organism. This particular small soil dwelling amoeba pursues a solitary life when times are good, but seeks the comfort of its fellows during times of starvation. This particular bacteria wander around as an individual with a characteristic size between 5 to 10 micrometer. So this particular amoeba, it is not bacteria, this is an amoeba. This amoeba wanders around individually, and the size is of the order of 5 to 10 micrometer. However, when deprived of their bacterial diet, basically their diet is the bacteria. When they are deprived of their bacterial diet, these cells undertake a radical change in lifestyle. So when lifestyle is changed, when there is shortage of their diet, which involves both interaction and differentiation through a series of fascinating intermediate steps as shown in the figure. I will demonstrate this figure. So during the starvation or the shortage of diet, their lifestyle changes. How the lifestyle changes? The lifestyle changes with the cooperation with other amoeba. A group of Dictyostelium amoeba in a soil sample that find themselves faced with starvation send chemical signals to one another. So that means when there is the shortage of diet, then the group of amoeba sends chemical signals to each other, resulting in the coalescence of thousands of separate amoeba to form a slug. That means at that time there is a coalescence event, that is they merge together. This is a slug. Slug means this is a collection of amoeba. They are merged with each other in the form of a slug. That is they are joined together. There is starvation, so they send chemical signals to each other, that is we have starvation now, so we have to come close and we have to be united. That is why here they are joined together. This we are saying as slug. So thousands of separate amoeba form a slug that looks like a small nematode worm. I will show you the figure of nematode worm later, but this particular thing looks like a nematode worm, but basically these are thousands of amoeba joined together. These cells appear to be poised on the brink between unicellular and multicellular lifestyles. So poised on the brink means that is one remarkable event is going to occur. That means now this particular organism that we are calling a slug. Slug is basically the composition of thousands of amoeba. So this particular composition is between the unicellular and multicellular lifestyle and can readily convert between them. So that is they may be in the form of unicellular or they may be in the form of multicellular, but they can convert between them. Ultimately, as shown in the figure, the slug stops moving and begins to form a stalk. That means this slug that is stops moving, and stalk means a particular stem like structure. This is a stem like structure, and step by step a stem like structure is being formed. This is a stem like structure, and in the head there is a particular body, we call it fruiting body. Cells near the top of the structure form spores. These are basically a collection of a huge number of cells. We call them as spores, which are resurrected once conditions are favorable. That is, from these spores new amoeba may generate. At the tip of the stalk is a nearly spherical bulb like structure. I have already shown you that is it is nearly spherical bulb like structure that contains many thousands of spores, essentially cells in a state of suspended animation. That is, these cells are in a state of suspended condition. When environmental conditions are appropriate for individual amoeba to grow, the spores undergo the process of germination, with each spore becoming a functional individual amoeba. So from these spores individual amoeba is generated. Now I will describe another example, that is multicellular organisms have many distinct communities of cells. The three branches of life that have most notably exploited the potential of the multicellular lifestyle are animals, plants and fungi. While bacterial and protist colonial organisms rarely form communities with characteristic dimensions of more than a few millimeter, with exception of stromatolites, because stromatolites can form colony of the order of meter. But other examples that I have demonstrated, the dimension of those colony is about a few millimeter. But in case of animals, plants and fungi, individuals in these three groups routinely grow to more than a meter in size. Their enormous size and corresponding complexity can be attributed to at least 3 factors. So these are the important factors, and you have to listen it very carefully. So what are the factors? Production of extracellular matrix material that can provide structural support for large communities of cells, because as we have said, that is the multicellular complex that can grow in case of animals, plants and fungi are of the order of meter. So there must be some extracellular matrix material that can provide structural support for these large multicellular structures. This is the first factor. Second factor is that a predilection means biasness, a predilection towards cellular specializations, such that many copies of cells with the same genomic content can develop to perform distinct functions. So when a full-fledged organism will be developed, what will happen? A group of cells will perform a particular or distinct functions. So there will be differentiation in the cells. So we are calling it a predilection or biasness towards cellular specializations. So each group of cells will perform distinct functions. This is the second factor. And third factor is that highly sophisticated mechanisms for the cells to communicate with one another within the organisms, because each group of cells should have to communicate with each other so that the all cellular functions can be performed within the organisms. We emphasize that these traits are not unique to animals, plants and fungi, but they are used more extensively there than elsewhere. Now I will show you the eye of a fly. So at first look at this figure. So this is the eye of a fly. This is a close-up image of a eye of a fly. Now the point is that the eye is made up of hundreds of small units called ommatidia. You see that if you carefully look at this particular eye, so this eye is composed of several thousands of small units. So these are the small units, and we call these particular units as ommatidia, each of which contains a group of 8 photoreceptor cells, support cells and a cornea. During development of the eye, these cells signal to one another to establish their identities and relative positions to create a stereotyped structure that is repeated many times. So there must be coordination between these cells. These cells send signal to one another to establish their identities, so that there is specialization in the cell function. Now some more examples we will continue. For example, one class of multicellular structure is the epithelial sheets. Epithelial sheets form part of the structural backdrop. Backdrop means the backbone in organs ranging from skin to bladder. So the structure of our skin to the bladder is formed by epithelial sheets. Functionally, the cells in these structures have roles such as serving as a barrier to transport of molecules, providing an interface at which molecules can be absorbed into cells, and serving as the seat of certain secretions. Now I will show you the figure of the epithelial sheets. So this is figure A. Figure A simple epithelial sheet resembles a tiled mosaic. So this looks like a tiled mosaic. The dark ovals are the cell nuclei stained with silver. So these dark portions are nuclei. Black portions are nuclei. Black ovals are the nuclei. and these are different cells joined together. So this is a particular cell, this is a particular cells, and they are joined together and they have formed a tissue. And if you, this is the side view of the image, if you look from the side, so B is the side view of the epithelial tissue, and figure C is the columnar structure of the epithelial tissue, and figure D is a skin. This is the image of a skin. Basically this skin is from the gum of a kitten. So this is the image of a skin like structure that has been formed by the epithelial tissue. Tissues are basically collection of cells and extracellular matrix. We have seen that cells can interact to form complexes, and even more intriguing examples of a multicellular structure is provided by tissues, such as that shown in figure 2.41. So this is an example of a tissue, the tissue which has been formed by cells, and these cells are joined together by some extracellular matrix. These connective tissues are built up from a diverse array of cells and materials they secrete. Beneath the epithelial surface, fibroblasts construct extracellular matrix. So how extracellular matrix is formed? By fibroblast. This connective tissue is built up of three main components: cells such as fibroblasts and macrophages, connective fibers, and a supporting substance made up of gags. What is especially appealing and intriguing about these tissues is the orchestration or the simultaneity in both space and time, leading to the positioning of cells and fibers. Now another example of the multicellular complex is the nerve cells. A totally different example of structural organization involving multiple cells is illustrated by collection of neurons. Neurons are the specialized cells in animals that we associate with thinking and feeling. These cells allow for the transmission of information over long distances in the form of electrical signals. Neurons are constructed with many input terminals. You see the line, that is many input terminals, that is input terminals be many, known as dendrites, and a single output path known as the axon. So the output path is single and it is known as axon. The fascinating structural feature of these cells is that they assemble into complex networks that are densely connected in patterns where dendrites from a given cell reach out to many others, from which they take various input. An example of a collection of fluorescently labeled neurons is shown in figure 2.42. So this is the complex structure of neurons. They are connected with each other. Dendrites and axons that reach out from the various cells have lengths far in excess of the 10 micrometer scale, characteristic of typical eukaryotes. Indeed, axons of some neurons can have lengths of centimeters and more. One fascinating example of neuronal contact is offered by the so-called neuromuscular junction. These junctions are the point of contact between motor neurons which convey the marching orders for a given muscle and the muscle fiber itself. So this is the figure of neuromuscular junction. This is the muscle fiber, this is the nerve axon, and this is the junction, and this is the synapse. Neuromuscular junction, the axon from a nerve cell makes contact, this is the axon, makes contact with various skeleton muscle. These are the muscle fibers. They form contact with various skeleton muscle. Each muscle fiber is a giant multinucleated cell formed by the fusion of hundreds or thousands of precursor cells. One of the remarkable I will show you another example of multicellular feature. The highest level in the structural hierarchy to the entertained here is that of individual multicellular organisms. The diversity of multicellular organisms is legendary, ranging from roses to hummingbirds, from Venus flytraps to the giant squid. What is especially remarkable that this diversity is contained in the simple statement of the cell theory. Each and every one of these organisms is a collection of cells and their products, and each and every one of these organisms is a result of a long history of evolution, resulting in specialization and diversification of the various cells that make up the organisms. Cells differentiate during development, leading to the entire organism. So, this differentiation of the cells is very important. I will show you one example. The fruit fly Drosophila melanogaster has had a long and rich history as one of the key model organisms of biology and is a useful starting point of thinking about the size of organisms. So, this is the figure of the Drosophila. The mature fly has a size of roughly 3 mm that can be thought of morphologically as being built up of 14 segments, 3 segments making up the head, 3 segments making up the thorax, and 8 segments making up the abdomen. This body plan is dictated by different cells adopting different patterns of gene expression depending upon where they are within the embryo. So, how the particular body pattern has been formed? This body pattern has been formed because of the cell differentiation, different cells adopting different patterns of gene expression. So, the particular group of cells have a particular pattern of the gene expression. One of the most remarkable feature of the pattern of gene expression illustrated in the figure is its spatial sharpness. So, this is the pattern of the gene expression. This is the figure of the pattern of the gene expression in the Drosophila embryo. The early stage fly embryo has undergone 13 rounds of cell division. So, the most remarkable feature of the pattern of the gene expression illustrated in the figure is its spatial sharpness, with the discrimination between the relevant gene being on or off taking place on a length scale comparable to the cell size itself. A fundamental challenge in the study of embryonic development has been the quest to understand the connection between patterns of gene expression in the embryo and the generation of macroscopic form. So, the particular form, that is particular macroscopic form, has been generated due to the pattern of the gene expression. So, each group of cells will have a particular genetic expression and they have a particular cell function. This is the main thing behind the multicellularity. Another example is the cells of nematode worm. This is the picture of C. elegans. This differential interference contrast image of a single adult worm was assembled from a series of high resolution micrographs, and this particular organisms is a model multicellular eukaryote, and this is important. This particular organism is important because its complete genome has been determined. The identity of each and every one of its 959 cells has been determined. The worms are transparent, permitting a variety of structural investigation. Now, this is a particular figure and this is called cell lineages in this particular organism. The developmental pattern of every cell in the worm is identical from one animal to another. Therefore, it has been possible for developmental biologists to determine the family tree of every cell present in the entire animal by patient direct observation. One of the most remarkable outcomes of the series of experiments leading to the lineage tree for C. elegans was the determination of the connectivity of the 302 neurons present in this nematode. So, main conclusion is this, that is, we can differentiate the functions of the cell. Each group of cell will perform a particular function. So, differentiation of the cells is behind the multicellularity. And lastly, we can conclude that organisms do not exist in isolation. Every organism on the planet is part of a larger ecological web that features both cooperation and competition with other individuals and species, ultimately ranging up to the interconnected ecosystem of planet Earth. Coral reefs represent a vivid examples of the interdependence of huge varieties of species living together in close quarters. An equally vivid and diverse community, through one frequently less appreciated for its intrinsic beauty, is found closer to home within our own intestines, which are inhabited by a teeming variety of bacteria. So, our intestine is inhabited by a teeming variety of bacteria. It has been estimated that the human body harbors nearly 10 times more microbial cells than it does human cells. So, we have more microbial cells or bacterial cells than that of human cells, 10 times more, and at least 100 times more bacterial genes than human genes. So, we have more almost 100 times more genes than human genes. Thus, we should think of ourselves not really as individuals, but rather as complex ecosystems of which the human cells form only a small part. So, this is what about the concept of the multicellularity. For more detailed understanding, I request all the viewers to go through the textbook of Physical Biology of the Cell by Rob Phillips, and you have to go through chapter 2, and I thank you all for listening my lecture.